Turning now to the latest on the Russia scandal engulfing the Trump administration. New names continue to come out of people who attended a meeting where people close to the president were promised help from the Russian government. CBS News confirms 7 people met with Donald Trump Jr. and key members of the campaign. Other reports say as many as 8 people were there, including the president's senior advisor, Jared Kushner, a Kremlin-connected lawyer, a Russian translator, a Russian lobbyist who was once also accused of hacking in a lawsuit was also there. Dan Diamond, reporter for Politico, is here to talk to me about this and break it all down. Okay, Dan, so we're learning more. There was this Russian translator at the meeting. Yesterday, we found out there was a lobbyist there as well, who in the past was also accused of participating in cyber attacks. What's the significance of these developments, Dan?
Well, I think the significance is it adds even more fuel to the need to investigate Jared Kushner, who's currently a White House official who previously hadn't been drawn in like Paul Manafort, who's already under investigation for Russia connections. The more Russians with intelligence connections who are in the room, the more momentum there will be, not just for Congress to investigate, but more threads for the FBI investigation to continue to tug on. And I do think it's interesting. The story has changed day after day. Rena, I almost feel like tomorrow we'll find out that 2 more people were in the meeting. That there's no evidence to that point, but it just hurts the Trump argument. It hurts the White House argument that they're being open and transparent when the evidence is they're being far from it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Dan. This is certainly unpredictable. Every day you wake up and you're surprised sometimes at some of the details. There was an email for this meeting that was sent to John Jr. on June 7th. That same day, his father, who was then presidential candidate, had this to say.
I am going to give a major speech on probably Monday of next week. And we're going to be discussing all of the things that have taken place with the Clintons. I think you're going to find it very informative and very, very interesting.
So he said he had dirt on the Clintons that day. How problematic do you think this timeline is for the administration?
Well, I don't want to speculate. I'm just a reporter, but it does seem like where there's smoke, there's fire here. And every thread that's been tugged with the Russia investigation seems to keep turning up something new. So I'm sure if there is a connection, investigators will cue on it. It is telling, though, that this is the time that Trump came out and called on the Clinton investigation or called on the Clinton campaign and said there will be dirt coming. I think there is a possible connection.
I want to move on to health care. You know, Dan, it's full court press this weekend. The president's making a hard push to get the Senate bill passed, and he also made calls on Air Force One on the way back from Paris. What do you think it's going to take, Dan, to get these senators to vote yes, and do you think it's likely?
Well, it is round the clock. I've got my Obamacare repeal beard here that I will shave when this is all over. Yeah, debatable on that front. But I think it's interesting that the White House has been, just pulling this back to Russia, the mind share, the messaging is all around defending on the Russia investigation, at least publicly, when they're trying to pass a major health care bill. Barack Obama, back in 2009, around this time, his big problem was, if your viewers recall, it was the beer summit. That's where he was focused. The White House has had problems in getting senators where they want them to go. And Trump specifically has not been the most effective salesman. That's been Mike Pence. So senators that we've talked to at Politico say that Pence and the HHS administrators are the ones who have been more key in moving their vote along.
So if it's Pence and these HHS senators, who do you believe on the Senate is likely to be swayed to vote for this bill?
Well, Lisa Murkowski is who they're going after, the Alaska senator who had been very critical of the bill to this point. The revised bill released this week does include as much as $2 billion over 10 years in new funding for Alaska's Medicaid program. And then Dean Heller, the Nevada senator who came out so strongly against the bill that the White House supported ads attacking him in Nevada, he may be gettable if his governor, Brian Sandoval, switches over. And Pence and senior White House leaders were very aggressively lobbying that governor yesterday in Washington, D.C.
And what do you think the chances are that Sandoval will turn?
I don't know. I mean, based on everything he's said to this point, he's been incredibly skeptical of the bill. The White House seems to be offering him some more funding for a potential deal to help boost Medicaid in that state. Will that be enough to get him? I think a lot of Republicans are worried about the perception of a buy-off to get this bill through, because that's what dogged the Democrats for years with their own partisan effort to pass health care in 2010.
And Dan, when you talk about the big hang-ups of this new version of the bill, what are they?
Well, I think the biggest hang-up is around the Medicaid funding, where there is still going to be nearly $800 billion taken out of the Medicaid program over a decade. And that is transformative for a program that serves about 75 million Americans. Hospitals, nurses, doctors, people who treat this population say they will not be able to do as much for these patients. And if you're a moderate senator in a state where maybe you only won one election by a couple 100,000 votes, there might be more people in line to lose coverage over the next number of years than were the margin to get you into office. And I think all of those senators are deeply worried that Medicaid cuts are just too far for them to come back from.
Yeah, Medicaid always a big sticking point. Do you think that the Senate will vote on this bill next week?
I think we'll find out very soon if they'll even bring it to the floor. That's been the sticking point so far. Republicans can't even get enough support for what's called a motion to proceed vote, where they need a majority just to even open debate. And right now, if one more Republican senator comes out, they will not be able to even begin debate on the bill.
So the beard will keep growing, Dan.
We'll see.
Dan Diamond from Politico, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Thank you.